Welcome to Gotta Run. This is Will Sanchez. My special guest today is Brad Usher. He is a founding member of the Long Island City Runners. He balances his professional life as the chief of staff for one of the most powerful women in New York State, Senator Liz Krueger. I'm thrilled to have Brad as a guest. Brad, before we go into your career, your dual career as chief of staff and as a runner, let's introduce the audience and tell us where you were born, a little bit about your growing up years.
Sure. I was born in California, in Vallejo, California, and moved around quite a bit as a kid and teenager. And my dad was in public administration and took various jobs, lived mostly in California, a little time in Juneau, Alaska. Loved Juneau. It's a beautiful place to grow up, a beautiful place to spend as a kid with the snow and everything. I will say as a younger person, I was not athletic at all. In fact, sometimes I tried to be athletic, but I never really thought of myself until much later in life as being athletic. I did fairly well academically, went to Berkeley as an undergraduate, and moved to New York actually in 1990. When I decided to go to graduate school, and I went to the New School for Social Research and did a PhD in political science there.
Wow, PhD in political science. And that time you were not actively involved?
I was not active, in fact. And I was a chubby kid. I lost weight for a while. I put a lot of weight back on both in my Berkeley years and after. Lost it for a little while, put it back on, and really went through sort of the roller coaster of somebody who likes his food too much and doesn't necessarily exercise as much as he should. And that really started to change in my mid-30s when I sort of made physical exercise a higher priority, although at that time I wouldn't say I certainly thought of it more as a chore, as something I did in order to battle the bulge rather than because I enjoyed it. And, I ran, but I didn't think of running as, I ran on a treadmill as one of the things that I did. And I got to say, back then, running on a treadmill was definitely not my favorite activity.
During that time, were you doing the running at the Y?
I guess I joined the Y in 2003. So
this is in Long Island?
Long Island City, yeah. My husband and I had lived in Astoria for many years, and there were a lot of gyms in that area that I would go to that were just small, cheap gyms, but they were perfectly adequate. And then in 2003, we moved to Elmhurst, and at that time, there really wasn't a gym there. There was something called the Gladiator, which I went to for about 3-4 months, and it was exactly what you might expect. A lot of weightlifters who you might guess I'm not one, and a couple of treadmills and a lack of air conditioning. And at that point, I decided I'd splurge, and I joined the Y, which is on Queens Boulevard, headed in toward the city, so it was very convenient for me to go to.
Well, in fact, I think you took a more active road than just being a member.
Well, that was more recently, and that was after the running club. So we'll get there. But at the beginning, the Y was, again, just a better gym than the one I had gone to, and it had a pool and things like that. So I had more options in terms of exercise. It had an indoor track that was, a 1/12 of a mile, so you had to run a lot of circles, but that was preferable to tread.
Okay. What was your professional life like at that point?
I started working for Senator Krueger in 2002, so throughout this period, I worked for her. I'd worked prior to that when I'd worked on a political campaign in Queens, gotten very active in local politics, and that was what led me into this. I worked for State Senator Tom Duane on the West Side for 3 years before I moved on to work for Liz.
Did you start as the infamous intern, to hear about?
Close. First of all, I was on the campaign, I volunteered, and then they hired me.
Okay.
And then I was hired by Tom Duane at the age of 35 to be his scheduler, because I was finishing my degree, but I didn't really have a lot of background, and so and I sort of worked my way up in that office, and then moved over to Liz.
I've discovered the schedule is very important.
Scheduler is very important.
That council member or that senator doesn't go anywhere unless the scheduler puts it down.
And I have to say, scheduling was not exactly my skill set.
So why did Liz hire you? What was the hiring process like?
Liz was coming from a non-political background, And so she had a lot of people who worked for her on her campaign who were committed to her, but didn't have political experience. They'd been social workers and researchers and other jobs that were not very familiar with sort of the ins and outs of what a state senator's office looks like. And I had a advantage in that I came from Tom Duane's office. I had both policy knowledge as well as sort of the practical knowledge of what does a state senator's office look like? How do you divide up the roles between different people? What kinds of systems do you have for organizing how you're dealing with constituents, how you're keeping track of letters going in and out, that kind of stuff. So it was both the practical and the
organized person.
Well, you should see my desk. I know where everything is, but nobody else can tell.
Senator Krueger's been the senator for over 10 years, I think.
Right, yeah. Again, I started with her about 3 months after she was elected in 2002.
2002. So is that every 4 years?
2 years. Another election this year, yeah.
Every 2 years.
Yeah.
My God, so she's always in rerunning mode,
right,
practically.
pretty much.
I'm in her district,
right.
and I get the newsletter, and it's beautifully done, organized, and I just can't believe all the activities you guys are involved in. I love the senior roundtable that you guys do. It looks like on a periodic basis.
Right, we're doing another one this Thursday.
What's your involvement in the newsletter?
Well, I actually do the first draft of most of the newsletters. Again, my sort of policy organizing background, but we draw on all the work that other people in the office are doing and what Senator Krueger wants to talk about at a particular time. She often has a specific issue that she's very focused on. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a collaborative process.
Well, kudos on the newsletter.
Thank you.
Now, is Chief of Staff in real life anything like you see on TV? I don't know if you've seen House of Cards.
I'm familiar with them. We're at a lower level. I don't know. We're not quite as Machiavellian, perhaps, as some of those shows, though you do need to always be keeping track of both what your policy goals are and the political atmosphere and who you need to have as allies and things like that. So it's in that there's a little bit of that.
Well, especially in Albany, we're always trying to clean up corruption or improve things.
And not do it. Not
so
always,
many people have gone behind bars,
right.
like the leaders,
Yeah.
So what's the atmosphere like in Albany nowadays?
Well, we just finished the budget, and it was a typical sort of, unfortunately, it was a good budget in many ways. It had a minimum wage increase and paid family leave and things like that are good, but the way it was actually done was pretty much the same as it's always done, which is behind closed doors.
Oh, the 3 men in a room?
The 3 men in a room, yes. And so I was up for 30 straight hours because we passed the budget overnight from Thursday into Friday morning, and we finished at about 9:30 Friday morning. And that's not the best way to do it either from a public information perspective, because not very many people are up at 4 a.m. following what's going on, or from a, senators are tired at 5 in the morning when they're trying to analyze an 1,000-page bill that they got an hour ago. And the staff who help them, like me, are also tired. So it doesn't make for, it's not the kind of deliberative process that you'd like to see.
All right. I guess Governor Cuomo wanted it on time, and that's why
right.
you had to put
being
in.
on time was more important than, and again, from a governor's perspective, they don't want people to be tearing things apart, and if they don't have time to actually look at the bill, it becomes harder for them to do that. So that might be his goal, but from a senator's goal of actually being able to analyze what you're voting on, doing it overnight and with bills appearing an hour to 2 hours before you have to vote on them when they're 1,000 pages long or 600 pages long.
Unless somebody did the Cliff Notes version of it.
Yeah, right. Well, staff help with that, and you have some sense of what's going to be in there before it comes out, but there are lines and lines that I know that we will find things that we voted on that we didn't know were in there 2 days from now.
Well, I must admit that for the Upper East Side, we consider ourselves very blessed in having senators like Senator Krueger, Senator Jose Serrano, we represent the Upper East Side, and our council members and our assembly people are just among the best. Yeah, and I know you guys all work closely together.
We do, and I think that it's an effort I think that they're also much more focused, and I live in Queens, and sometimes, some of our representatives are better, some are not as communicative, but one of the things we do try to do is try to explain what is actually going on in Albany and what the process is, so that people at least have a sense of what they agree with, what they don't agree with, and what needs to change to make a more deliberative process.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the Y. You're exercising, but something happened where I guess the Y decided that we need a running club.
Yes.
And tell us the story.
Okay. So in 2011, I'd found a great boot camp with Jonathan Imperial, who's moved up in management in the Y now, but still teaches a great boot camp class. And I would go to that regularly. Boot camp was also not something I thought I would be doing, but I accidentally was late one day to the spin class, which was more my style, went to boot camp, loved the class. And at a certain point, Jonathan announced that they were going to form a running club. And I said to him after class, well, I like running better than any of the other things you make me do, like push-ups or
jumping jacks, whatever.
Right. So I'm going to join the running club. And so we had a first event where we ran, I think, 2 miles around the neighborhood, kind of. And we had Coach Kenny Young. He became our mentor and was really in charge of getting us going. And I loved it. I loved the club from the beginning. I loved the camaraderie. And I also relatively quickly found out that I was kind of good at this, which was a big surprise to me on some level. Again, I always thought of exercise as I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I need to for my health, but it's not something I'm good at, and I just have to struggle through this. And
but to your surprise, you were actually fast.
Yeah, well, I remember the first day we ran the 2 miles, and I was not in the front, but I was pretty far up, and I was also feeling like, oh, this isn't, I'm breathing very naturally. I felt like I had almost a machine-like rhythm going, and I was just chugging along. Mm-hmm. And about a month into the club, Kenny sent out an email saying, we're going to have a trip to Philadelphia, and everybody in the club should be able to do at least a half marathon. And this was I guess June, and that would be in November. So I said, well, Coach Kenny says I can do it, so I can do it. So I signed up to do the half marathon, not the marathon. And that was sort of my first half marathon. I actually did one a little earlier, but I found out when they measured it, it wasn't really a half marathon.
Oh, really? All right. Sometimes that happens.
So
obviously, it wasn't a road runner's
It was not a road runner's race. So my first real half marathon was Philly, and that was a great trip. It was, again, a bunch of us going down. We actually had a reprise of that trip this year, where another group went down, and I ran the half, and other people ran the full. Mm-hmm. But so that was my first half marathon, and I've remained very active in the club, joined Roadrunners, started doing the 9+1 every year.
Because you want to get into the New York City Marathon.
Yeah, well, even when I signed up for the half and when I ran the first half, I remember the first several halves I ran, my attitude was, after I finished the half, I don't understand how anybody could run another half marathon after this. Uh-huh. I am done. But over time, I got stronger, and I felt like, okay, I've got to make the marathon a goal. Okay. And so, again, the club continued to be my base of support. Coach Kenny had this crazy marathon training plan, which I took religiously. And it was basically a 6 to 7 day a week running plan, with some days where you ran as slow as you wanted and you only ran a couple miles, and then you had obviously the long run and some speed work. But I spent the summer of 2013 training.
Hopefully for the New York City Marathon.
For the New York City Marathon.
How long a program was it?
It was an 18-week program. Okay. And I had set myself a goal based on my half marathon times of 3:45. And as I was training, I did the 18-miler in
Central
Park, and I did that at a pace that made me think I should lower my goal. And there was an obvious goal for me to aim for, because I would be running it at age 50, able to qualify for Boston if I did 3:30.
So you got to the starting line uninjured?
Yes.
And how did you do?
I did a 3:27. I felt it was a wonderful experience. And
your first marathon, yeah. Boston qualifier, New York, and what year was that?
That was 2013. It was cool with a wind. It got progressively colder as the day went on, but there was some wind, but not a lot. It was actually really good running weather. I'd done a New York City half, which also has something of a big crowd. That there's nothing like running through Brooklyn,
All five boroughs.
high-fiving everybody as you're running
you
along.
did?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
That's,
you could have gone to 325 if you weren't
no,
having
no,
a good
I
time.
get energy off of those high fives, so
All right.
they make me go faster.
I see. All right.
And
So,
then by the end, I was not high-fiving anybody. I was running down the
327.
center of the road like this.
so did you go to Boston?
I did go to Boston
2014
in it was actually 2015 because the New York is late enough that you
Oh, you don't qualify.
you don't
until-
qualify till the following year.
Oh,
so
interesting.
so I've sort of set myself a one marathon a year.
Okay, so what was your
rule.
big thing in 2014?
2014, I did the Long Island Marathon, a little less exciting, and I've decided I need crowds when I do a marathon.
okay.
There weren't like crowds there. But,
Well, you're learning from your experience. You need a crowd.
Yeah.
But a good bling at the end.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And so then in 2015, I did Boston. Yeah.
Okay. How did you do Boston?
I did 223. So
I'm sorry?
I mean 323.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
not
said,
223. No, 323. And,
My God, even better.
Yeah. So
you must have been.
And that was a more challenging day because it was rainy and with significant wind. It was not so bad at the beginning, but by the end, about the time you hit Heartbreak or the four hills going into Heartbreak Hill, the rain was coming down pretty good and the wind was growing.
Wow. Are you going to do it again in Boston?
I imagine at some point I will absolutely do New York again, and I'll probably do Boston again.
Okay.
Again, I only run one marathon a year.
All right.
And
you have to medal for Boston.
well, yes, I have. This is my New York medal and my Boston medal.
Now you have two other medals. So it looks like you're involved with the Queen's Distance Runners. Have you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've done a number of races with them, and I'm going to volunteer for their Queen's Marathon.
The inaugural.
Yes, the inaugural Queen's Marathon. Again, running, several laps of Flushing Meadow Park sounds a little challenging, but I can cheer people on and help out.
That's good.
And,
so what are these
well,
other?
this is, I won my age group for the Love of Queens 5K, which was on a very, very cold February day this year. It was the Saturday, which was very, very cold, and then Sunday, where I understand some people ran something in Prospect Park where it was really, really cold. But,
All right.
so
So
that
you came
was
in first for your
my
your
age group, yeah.
And then you did another one, a half.
Yeah, this was a half. This is my fastest half, 132 something. It's the Brooklyn Greenway half, and I finished third in my age group. These races are significantly smaller than the Roadrunners races, so it's this kind of race that I'm likely to finish.
All right. So you
top,
enjoyed
close
that.
to my top.
Enjoy that. Excellent.
I mean, the other thing I'll say about the club is it's turned running from a solitary activity into a group activity, and I think that's one of the things that I never, never thought of running as something that was.
Yep. Running is part of a tribe.
Yes,
and
exactly.
You're now a member of the tribe,
Right,
which is great.
and we do our club. Our club, I think, is not as big as it once was, but it was. There's a core group of people who run regularly, and we have great chats as we do our 12 miles in Central Park, and it's a great. It's therapeutic.
Well, how big a club is it now?
Well, I mean, I would say we had. What did we have? I think about 8 runners who ran the last race, Scotland Run, yeah, and we have probably 15 or 20 who are occasional participants in something, and a core of more like.
But I think I read you're the social director for the club.
I have become the social director. I've taken on sort of because this club is really important to me. I've worked hard to keep it going, and we've planning social events and also making sure we have a regular running schedule. We keep running through the winter. And
so you used to be a scheduler. Now you're a
yes,
scheduler again.
I do schedule the runs.
So now you got that experience.
I think I think we're going to do a big spring kickoff later. We might do it soon, but we might also hold off to National Running Day in June.
Now I see you wearing the Y T-shirt that says Turkey Trot.
Yes.
So the running club is part of the Y. So
right.
They're hand in hand, they work together.
Yes. Not everybody in our running club has to be from the Y, but it's a Y production, and they're the support for it. And one of the things that we did as a club, with the help again of the Y staff, is we started this turkey trot, which is a kids race. We do every Thanksgiving. That's why the turkey. Obviously, my shirt is a little out of season, but I wanted to wear something.
November of last year, I guess?
This was November of last year's shirt. I have many, many turkey trot shirts because I get a new one every year. started in 2011.
Okay.
So the club formed in March or April of 2011.
Okay, but still relatively young,
And-
just
yeah,
under 5 years.
Yeah, right. So every year we've done a turkey trot, and
Excellent.
it's a great, that is, I think, one of the things that has linked me more to the mission of the Y, which is about healthy kids and getting kids excited about exercise and things like that. And seeing these little kids running around and, again, all shapes and sizes. So you've got the ones who are definitely trying to win the race, who are fast and look like they can
How
be
long
runners.
is it a 1 miler?
No, it's the different distances for ages. So the 2 to 5 run like 200 meters, and then it goes up to, I think, maybe a 1K or something like that. They're not long races,
Okay,
but and then you have the kids who look more like what I looked like when I was a kid, out of shape, but I didn't, I didn't try the way that these kids are, and I find that very
Well, now they
inspiring.
have you guys as mentors, the
Yeah,
running club.
and we give them
You
all
get-
trophies, bigger trophies than these. And they love, that's the biggest exciting thing. I'm often in charge of the trophy table, and the kids are all coming over and staring at the trophies before the race, and they all get medals, of course.
Oh, excellent.
So, it's,
excellent. I was Googling the Y, and to my surprise, there's much more to the Y than meets the eye. I said, you guys got all sorts of programs going on. I mean, you got a beautiful location. So besides doing things for kids, you got programs to help people with diabetes and so forth.
See,
Tell us
silver
about some of this.
sneakers, which are aimed at seniors who are, interested in keeping active, but maybe have some more physical limitations. Swimming, basketball leagues, both for kids and for adults. There's a whole lot of different things, and that was the other thing that, a couple of years in, the local Long Island City Y asked me to join their board, which I joined because I had, again, for a long time, the Y was just a gym to me, and I saw the kids running around, and sometimes the kids got in my way, but, I didn't really think about the broader mission, and I think the running club has been a great thing in terms of bringing me and a lot of other people into wanting to participate more in the Y as an institution. The Long Island City Y has a lot of youth programs that do stuff in public housing and have been really active in providing access to gym and baseball and things like that kids don't easily have, particularly in a big city like New York, where unfortunately, I'm a California boy. Well, I may not have utilized them. The schools I went to had lots of land and lots of fields and gyms and everything, and you see these schools where even the playground is covered with trailers for classes. There's a real need for access to recreational and physical activity, and the Y also, they've got classes aimed at all ages. They've got dance classes, and also a lot of teen programs that are not just aimed at physical education, or physical fitness, but also aimed at mentoring kids through difficult times and providing peer support.
How is the Y funded?
Funded through donations, and certainly that's an important part. It runs programs that receive government funding. They run pre-K programs. They receive grants from local legislators and others for things like basketball or baseball leagues and things like that. So it's a combination of private and public funding, and it's
And is it low cost to join the Y? I guess you have to pay a little fee.
The gym membership varies depending on which location you are. Some of the Manhattan ones are more expensive. I think there are cheaper ones in some areas but I think it's a great value for what you actually get, because not very many gyms have a pool.
That's true.
There, and the number of different classes that you have. Again, I loved my boot camp class. People love their Zumba and their spin classes. There's various martial arts classes.
Tai Chi.
Yes, Tai Chi. And they also have kids martial arts classes too.
Oh my gosh, you keep a lot of people employed because you need all sorts of trainers for all those kind
that's
of
right.
classes.
Yeah,
and the pool. And I guess you teach swimming for kids.
They
and
teach
adults.
swimming for kids, and then you have
Well, actually, I went to the Y in Riverdale because I liked the swimming coach, Rob Valentine. Before he became the world famous Rob Valentine, was a swimming coach at a Y. I said, this is the best deal in town. So I got on the bus from Manhattan to Riverdale in the Bronx.
Oh, wow. The Y, I think it has a lot to offer, and I think for people looking for a gym, it's a great gym where you're also involved in something bigger than a gym.
That's right. Your running group today, part of the New York City Marathon to raise funds as well, a charity.
Not yet. Yeah. Done some
you should be
volunteer.
very interested in my next guest.
Oh, okay.
Well, listen, on that note, thank you so much for coming in.
Great. Thank you
It's a
very much
pleasure.
for having me.